Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcore Guides, bringing my guide for Dead Space on Impossible Difficulty. Today we're doing Chapter 3, entitled Course Correction. And just like I said in the last chapter, that was my favorite, or at least one of my favorites. This is actually one of my least favorite chapters to do. And I'm trying to remember exactly why, off the top of my head, but we'll definitely get into that when we get to that. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the one where you go to the engineering area. Well, not engineering, not mining. Oh, yeah, I remember now. Okay. It's this one. Sorry. I did actually record this a couple of days ago, but then I stopped recording because somehow my brain stopped working during the recording. As in, like, my commentary just started getting kind of phooey, so I gave up on it and just came back. And I do remember this one being one of my least favorites, and now I remember why. It's because this very next section that's coming up, where you pretty much have to go back and forth to link up these... What were they called? Well, these power conduit things. You had to go link them up, and it's just... It's a tad bit annoying having to go back and forth between the gondola and what have you. Although it's only like a one-time back and forth, but even then still, it's just annoying. Also, yeah, I hit my desk like every episode. It's because I talk with my hands. Very bad habit of mine, but... So, nothing special going on right now. We're pretty much free to do whatever we want, exploration-wise. There's like one enemy that's going to appear, maybe two. I think at least one. If you were playing the Dead Space remake, once you come down here, you will have access to the Ripper. But we're not doing the remake, so we're just doing this one. At some point, I will probably do the remake, but it's going to be a while before I do that, actually. If anything, the next Dead Space I might end up doing will probably just be 2. I might not do 3. I don't know yet. I haven't really thought that far ahead. But personally speaking, I'm not that interested in doing Dead Space 3. I don't hate the game. I just don't really play it as much. I haven't really gone back through it or anything like that. 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best ones to play, but the remake's pretty good. So yeah, I decided to upgrade reload and then also upgrade speed alongside it. So that's what I go for there, if those didn't catch it in time. For the plasma cutter, yes. So, coming down here, there's going to be a bunch of explosives around the area that you can use. It's just the unfortunate part is they're kind of spread out, so I can't really do the thing I did in Chapter 1 where I can go on the bridge area and sort of like lean or lure enemies into it. So we're pretty much going to have to just use plasma cutter to get through most of this, which is unfortunate, but that's just how it is. And first enemy is going to spawn right about here. At least they should. That leaper that was underneath you, I don't think that leaper spawns until maybe a little bit later, if not around this area. I'm going to call this by area. I'm going to call it Area 1, and then the one where you go across the gondola is going to be called Area 2, just to kind of make things just a tad bit easier to explain where specific enemies are going to spawn. There's going to be some spitters that are going to spawn in Area 2, but they're not going to show up until we start doing the gondola stuff, so... Well, in this case, I think they call it the... Yeah, they do call it a gondola. Okay, good. I thought I was stupid. I thought I was getting that wrong. And funny enough, I like to associate, certain words and certain games with other things. And whenever I think of the word gondola, I always associate it with Jak 1 when you're going to that snow area. So coming up here, if you had an explosive, you could shoot it right at these guys and knock out the swarmers. And as you can see, one thing I want to say real quick is, as you can see, if you walk down this ramp, these swarmers don't usually come out and try to attack you. So that's something you can get kind of a bit of an advantage on. So instead of running up here and attacking the super slasher, instead just stay down, like, kind of down the stairs here, and just shoot at the super when you get. I was about to say when you get the chance. It's like, well, you have the chance right now. Is there an infector in there? Yes, if I remember correctly from this video, I think there's an infector that spawns right now. Because I thought he spawned later on than that, but something I mentioned, I think it was either the previous video or it was the one when I was trying to record this before, is that when it comes to infectors, they cannot be delimbed, and I'm not sure if that's 100% true. I've tried to delimb them in Dead Space 1, but I can never seem to do it. In the remake, they seem to get delimbed, but if you want to not waste ammo, of course, just use stasis and then stomp them out, and then if they, start to get back out of stasis, then stasis them once again. I should start moving my desk, like, further in every time that I get the chance, because I keep hitting the damn thing. So, yeah. With infectors, my recommendation for them is just to blast them with a plasma cutter. Because at this point in time, if you've upgraded damage, then most likely you probably do enough damage to actually take them down in, like, 5-6 shots. And that's relatively good enough. Because when it comes to Dead Space ammo, is you want to try to make sure that the ammo that you're using to take down a necromorph is the same. Like, you get the same amount of ammo back if they were to spawn with ammo. Typically, you don't want them to spawn with ammo. I mean, every once in a while, yeah, of course you do. Personally, I'd rather have ammo be spawned in, exploration areas and use less ammo on enemies. But it is what it is. I'd rather get money from them than anything. So, coming up here on the gondola, I'm just going to aim at the first explosive barrel. I tried grabbing, but that didn't work, so I just shot at it once that first guy spawns down there. And then you're going to want to immediately attack the spitter as fast as you possibly can. He's the one in like, not directly in front of us, but the one that's like up on that ramp there, because attacking him is going to be very important, because you're on a very small space, and if you get attacked with that spit, that's going to do a lot of damage. And not only that, that's going to slow you down too. And something you could do that I didn't do is you can maybe potentially wait for the enemies to kind of spawn in, and then you stasis, gang them all up to where the explosive barrel is at, and then after they're like all ganged up, then you can use the explosive barrel, or you can do what I did and just explosive barrel the first guy, and then like shoot the spitter in the legs. And of course, a super slasher does, spawn behind the spitter as well, and then there's one from the left side that spawns. There's only one spitter, so realistically speaking, try to aim for him if you can see him, because the spitter is almost essentially a death sentence. He should be priority number 1. You definitely want to take out the spitter first, especially take out the legs. I mean, granted, taking out his head would probably work too, but I think they can still spit if I'm not mistaken. So either aim for the head, knock that off, or I always try to go for the legs just because I know that it slows them down just enough to where they probably won't spit too often. They can still do it, but they'll probably have to try to get closer to you. And I don't know, it's just weird. This game's weird like that. So I always go for the legs first, just because it gives me like ample time to start aiming at the rest of the body. That's usually what I do. So up here, the slasher's gonna spawn. You should be like 3 shots to the leg, and then 2 shots to the arm by now should kill them. These are the regular ones, of course. So 5 shots to, pretty much do it. And then, of course, we're going to have a lurker that's going to spawn. And something that you can do that I learned recently was this right here. I'm not doing it on purpose, but something I did learn about lurkers is if you get, like I said in the last video, if you get close to them, they will try to, jump up and grab you. But if you were to shoot them before they grab you, you can usually knock them out of that animation of them trying to grab you, and then pretty much get away with not getting grabbed. So something you can do is if you wanted to, get relatively close to a lurker, but not, too close. Get within, like, quote-unquote grab range, and then just shoot them in the arms when they spawn out. And then that way you can have the, the tentacles be spawned and do more damage against them. But not only that, but you can kind of, like, manipulate it to where you can make them jump toward you, and then you can hit them in the animation and potentially stop them from grabbing you and, well, stop them from attacking. Because the important thing about Dead Space, especially like in early chapters, is to not take damage. Once we start getting to like later chapters, damage doesn't really matter at all. It's gonna become so minuscule that it's not gonna matter as much. I'm gonna get to a point, and this is where we're gonna end up in Dead Space. Is I'm gonna get to a point in like chapter 12 where it's either that or chapter 11 or chapter 12, where there's a power node door, and I open the power node door, and lo and behold, to my surprise, I am full of inventory. Yeah, I'm so damn full of cigarettes. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I'm so full of, like, inventory room that I can't grab any of the amount of, like, ammo. And I had to use some of the health packs just to grab more health packs. It was ridiculous. I had so much health, and I had so much, health packs, and I had so much stuff just lined up already that it didn't matter. That no door was useless. And not to mention, something I can say later is when you're doing the whole like grabbing the marker and moving it across the platforms, is if you were to continue on past that node door that I was at, then you would lose out on that node door, because when you go into the next room that the marker wants you to go into, you can't go back to the other room, as far as I'm aware. You shouldn't be able to, because like the doors do seem to be locked. So I got locked out of all that ammo, that extra ammo that I thought I could just come back to. And yeah, so that's where we're going to end up in terms of Dead Space. But early on, you really want to be kind of a tad bit more lenient. Or not lenient. You want to be a tad frugal with your ammo, but you don't want to be too frugal with it. So As in, like, if you see a necromorph, then chances are you want to shoot at it. You know, you want to try to shoot at it. That's what I mean by being frugal. Like, you don't want to, you know, overshoot and, like, miss literally every shot. But Dead Space is relatively nice enough to where, you know, unlike earlier Resident Evils, it's relatively nice to the point, like Resident Evil 4, where it just kind of gives you enough ammo to get through. And we usually get +1 ammo just from the sake of taking down slashers. Because, like, they spawn with, like, 6 ammo, as, you know, we probably no doubt know by now. And if you waste 5, then you get that +1, so realistically speaking, you get it kind of all back. Now, like I said, I would much rather have money be spawned, that way I can buy power nodes and just get more damage, and then get more, like, upgrades on my weapons and stuff. That way I could just not have to use as much ammo, which does become a thing. Especially later on, like I said. We're going to get to a point where we're just going to do so much damn ammo that's not really going to matter much. Okay, so I'm just going for the health here. But, of course, Dead Space's weirdness tries to kick in, and then I accidentally pick up the flame fuel, even though I never went out of my way to look at it, actively look at it, and grab it. So, I got screwed on that, and I think I accidentally... No, I didn't grab it again. Okay. It was line rats that I dropped. So, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to think of what I upgrade this time. Was it damage? No, okay, I upgraded the node going to the damage. I forgot that... You know, it's funny, it's been like a couple days since I recorded this, but even then, still, I kind of forgot this is Dead Space 1. So, I tend to try to save as many nodes as I possibly can. At least one node. I was wondering why I didn't upgrade to damage, and it's like, well, because I want that one node for a node door, just in case. So, and like I said before, it might not seem like it, but they really are worth it. Having that one node for a node door really is truly worth it. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. At least in my playthroughs, they're usually pretty worth. So, this next area is going to spawn, I think, 2 to 3 enemies. Not too many of them, really. And what I tend to do is, in this first part, I just kind of stand in a corner. It doesn't matter which one. I stand in a corner just to get kind of like a good, decent visual view on the entire room. So that way I know where they spawn from, like you saw, like with that guy. And then, yeah, like, you know, just try to, like, stay in the corners. That's my best advice here. Just stay in the corners. And just listen for, like, when you hear the break of, like, the vents and stuff. And then, you know, wherever they're spawning from, just, you know, go and attack them by now. I'd say by now, I would assume that most people are probably relatively okay at Dead Space at this point. If you're playing on impossible mode, you're probably more than capable of getting good shots and getting decent damage. It's probably just more so, like, are there any extra tips and tricks I can potentially give? And that's what I think Dead Space kind of ends up becoming at a point is, you know, what enemies are going to spawn, when and where and how, and if there's any extra things you could do to maybe manipulate them and then stop them from, you know, getting the advantage on you and stuff. And that kind of does suck for a hard mode game, but at the same time, like, I don't mind actually having a game that is hard, but also manipulative. I cannot say words. I don't mind that to an extent. It depends on the game. Like, I feel like Dead Space gets a free pass just because, like, even though enemies can be manipulated, like, there are times where they can gang up on you and get the advantage. Also, I mentioned this earlier, but the Ripper works real well against lurkers. And there's going to be 2 lurkers coming up in a second. So once you come back here, 2 of them should spawn. Okay. Make a liar out of me, I guess. Never mind. Yeah, just forget that. I thought 2 lurkers were supposed to spawn, but I guess I was wrong. Unless I'm thinking of a different area. My bad. I didn't mean to lie about that. Oops. Well, anyway, if you do run the Ripper, that's actually a really good weapon against the lurkers themselves. It's actually a pretty good weapon in general, like the one where you actually go to shoot it out when you use a secondary fire on it. It's pretty good. However, it can come back and hit you. So, that's something to be careful of. But if you're a Ripper main, then most likely by now you probably understand that the Ripper does do that. But yeah, Ripper base damage is actually relatively decent for a good while. It's surprising. It's just mainly like Plasma Cutter base damage that just kind of starts to scale a bit, I feel. Just a tad. Not by much, but just enough to where, like, I kind of notice. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, the damage is really starting to get kind of weird. I mean, it only scales because of, like, you know, the super variants. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Because, of course, I mean, every weapon basically does anyway. I know what I'm saying, damn it. I know what I mean. But I'm not putting it right in the right words. I'm probably confusing a bunch of people, too. Also, there's going to be 2 leapers in this area, so just try to find a spot where you can get a good vantage point on them, as in, like, a view. And then just, you know, figure out where they are. Because it takes them a while to kind of get to you. It takes a while for, like, the second one to kind of get down there and get to you. Yeah, what I mean by scaling is, oh, there's 3, actually. I don't mean, like, a hard scale. I mean, like, it just feels like Plasma Cutter just eventually just doesn't do exactly what I need it to do later on. Okay, there's 4. I'm making a liar of myself once again. Because, like, we're going to get to a point where we're going to be fighting mostly, like, super variants and stuff. And it just feels like, compared to, like, your other base weapons, the Plasma Cutter seems to eventually kind of fall off a tad. Even though, like, it is still, like, the best weapon personally. Or at least it's a good enough weapon. It can still be used. I just feel like the other weapons do kind of have more damage later on, I feel. Like the Force Gun, for example, takes like a good few shots just to take down a super enemy. So, yeah. Here's something actually that I forgot that Dead Space 1 did. Was the zero gravity thing. I kind of got so used to playing remake version that I kept thinking that we're going to do the Dead Space 2, you know, zero gravity style. But no, you just have the old version of Dead Space 1, zero gravity, where you pretty much just kind of leap back and forth between, you know, areas and stuff, which I don't mind, actually. I kind of like the zero gravity variant of Dead Space 1. Alright, so this next area, we're going to be running to the right, and we're going to be running away from this giant spinning thing, and there's enough holes to kind of hide into, and typically almost every hole is going to have like an enemy. There is a stasis module that I did grab earlier, but there's not going to be one for a while, so if you don't want to use stasis, don't use it. You don't have to. These are just regular, like, slashers. If you wanted, you could always just run into, like, a little hidey-ho. And if you know, okay with using stasis, then just stasis the enemy. And then run out of these little caves, and then run into the next one. And the enemy should get knocked away by the giant, you know, arm thing here. But that's up to you on that one. Leapers, although, don't seem to probably get hit, because they're just kind of low to the ground, so... Unless he wasn't out far enough, that could be why. Also, another thing that I've noticed about Leapers, if you actually shoot at their head, this is something I probably should have actually talked more about earlier, but something I didn't notice until now. Not, like, literally, like, now, but something that I've noticed in my recent playthroughs, is that whenever you shoot off, like, a Leaper's head, they seem to kind of get disorientated. So, that's something to kind of keep in mind, too, if you want to make them a little bit more easier to take care of. I usually go for the arms just because, like, if you take out both arms, it always seems like it does do enough damage to kill them fully. But if you want that little extra bit of help, you know, if they're really being annoying, then, you know, you could probably aim for the head and potentially slow them down. Like, it seems like that's how it works with them. With slashers, though, it doesn't seem like that works very often. Like, it always seems like with slashers, even if you shoot out their head, they still kind of come at you full force. But I would assume they probably don't know exactly where they're going. But I always aim for the legs when it comes to slashers and stuff. Alright, so this next part, this is a relatively annoying part of Dead Space 1. And I will admit, I'm not always the biggest fan of these sections, mainly because they just waste ammo. Like, yes, you are actually using your ammo. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, too. Is, if you don't want to waste plasma cutter ammo, then, you know, use like a different weapon, because like they give you pulse rifle ammo there because they probably expect players to probably have it at that point, and that's understandable for like a normal playthrough. But since I'm doing a possible mode, I kind of want to keep as much money as I possibly can to kind of put into other things. And it's funny how I'm talking about plasma cutter, like, you know, getting weaker later on, and it's like I'm talking about how powerful it is now, but it's like, well, yeah, it's powerful now, but later on it's going to become like not exactly as crazy powerful as, like, say, other weapons are. So, something to keep in mind is that once you go through this door, there's going to be a super slasher that's going to spawn. So you can kind of trick him to coming out and, you know, attack him. At this point in time, most likely you might have a good idea of how to evade enemies. It doesn't work, like, 100% of the time, but it does kind of work a bit. Basically, where you get kind of close to them and then you back off. Just, you get close enough, and then you back off quickly. That way you can kind of make them try to strike, but then also miss. But like I said, it doesn't work all the time because sometimes sometimes the little bastards actually do get a few nice, pop shots in on you. Granted, staying far away from the necromorphs is great. That's something you definitely want to do. But if you are in a situation where you're too close, just instantly back off and then instantly shoot at like a body part. Recommended shooting at a leg. One shot to a leg. And I know I keep saying it and I keep repeating it, but yeah, going for the legs is what I always recommend doing. Mainly because like it just does decent damage. Well, not even okay. It's not the damage that it does. It's the what am I trying to say? It's the them losing their movement. That's something that I think slashers definitely need to lose out on. So, and that's kind of the cool thing about Dead Space 1 is every necromorph seems to have like a particular weakness. So, as we saw, with slashers, of course, shooting off the legs, that gets rid of their movement. Same thing with pregnants, and then with say like a leaper, if you shoot off their head, you can potentially stop them from like crawling too fast because they don't know where they're going. They want to kind of take it a bit easier. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm not going to guarantee that is absolutely true that works, but from what it seems like it works. So once you come down here, just try to like go through this area as fast as possible so you can kind of avoid the leapers, and that way you can kind of make them spawn. You want to make them spawn to like try to get to this door, so that way they can't like crawl over it. It's really weird how they just kind of have trouble crawling over certain areas. So that's something you can kind of do to leapers is you can make them, if you try to get to these doors, they sometimes won't try to crawl over and they can get kind of stuck. And that's something that will definitely help in your playthrough if you want to, cheese it like I am. I'm not actively trying to make them cheesed. I'm just using the game to my advantage and making them, lose out on hitting me. Also, another thing is, notice how I'm only ever using medkits from inventory, typically. It's because I'm always afraid of, like, the game accidentally using, like, a bigger medkit. And I'm trying to save on the big medkits as much as I possibly can. So, if you have a bunch of medium medkits or small medkits, especially small medkits, use those first. Always use your small medkits first and see how much health you get out of it first before you start using, like, any of the big ones. And if you're in a dire situation and you know you're about to die, yeah, absolutely go for that quick med. Absolutely, of course. But I always recommend just at least having your inventory, especially after, sections like this. You want to try to have, like, your inventory out and about and then use your stuff that way. That way, of course, you don't accidentally use a medkit that could be pretty precious to you, honestly. Because that would suck. That would be something you don't really want to waste either. Of course, I'm not trying to tell people how to play. I'm just telling you guys how I play, particularly. So, And another thing too is like this is an old game, so at this point, I'm pretty sure everybody probably knows how to deal with this stuff. And that's fine, of course. I'm just doing this for fun anyway. I don't know. I kind of felt like going back to the Dead Space mood. I've been really meaning to do this for a long time. Like ever since I started this channel, I've been meaning to do Dead Space Impossible because I did finish Impossible mode, I think, before I ever started this channel. And yeah, that was a long time ago. I think I started this channel back in like 2015, and I was still on my dad's PlayStation account when I beat Dead Space. I think I got it around the time when it came out. I remember the trailers too. Ah, I feel old. I feel old as shit. Does anybody remember the Isaac Clarke skin you can get in Dante's Inferno? I wonder if I can still get my hands on that, though, because it wasn't a different account. Maybe. I mean, I still have that. I think I still have that account on my PlayStation 3. I might be able to sign into my dad's account and maybe take the skin from there. Unless the PlayStation Store allows you to, like, buy it or whatever. I don't remember. But I remember thinking that was, like, one of the coolest things. And then recently I found out from Godzilla Mendoza's video about it. I watch him every once in a while, not very often, but I found out recently that Isaac Clarke was in a lot more games than I thought he was. I mean, of course, PlayStation All-Stars, and there's also, like, I think one of the Tony Hawk games, or one of the skating games. It's like, well, of course, like, everybody's in a goddamn skateboard game. But he's also in, Army of Two, 40th Day, for the PSP version, I guess. Which, I didn't even know. either I didn't know or I completely forgot that there was a PSP version of it, but it does look really cool. I'm kind of a sucker for that. I still kind of am. I still kind of fall for that trap where there's always like a different console version of a game, and I usually always want to get that different console version just to have like a different experience. Bionicle Heroes being the absolute case of that being, you know, the thing that I do all the time. I have, well, I don't have a GameCube version for it, but I do actually have like the PlayStation 2 version. I used to have GameCube, but then I lost it, or I must have never owned it. But I had the PlayStation 2 version of Bionicle Heroes, and then on top of that, I have the DS version, which was pretty fun. And then I have the Game Boy version, which is one that I also grew up with. I didn't grow up with the DS version. I grew up with the Game Boy and the console version, but man, you know, the Game Boy one's still pretty damn cool, honestly. Maybe I could do a guide of those. Actually, you know what's funny? I say that, but yet I have a Bionicle Heroes no upgrade run guide that I was going to do. But then my PlayStation 2 was just being a little turd, and it didn't want to work with me. Well, actually what happened was it was being a turd, and then I got the game to work. Oh, yeah, also grab this real quick, and then just shoot it right up on top of this ramp, because there's swarmers up there. You want to get them all to kind of spawn in a good spot for you to shoot them at. If you do miss them, there is another explosive barrel you can get to, but you might have to go through them to get to it, so I wouldn't do that. I'd say just, you know, grab the explosive and throw it right up here and blow up these two guys. Easy. So, yeah, I was going to do Bionicle Heroes, but PlayStation 2 is being kind of whack like it usually is. It just gives me trouble. It's not too bad. Oh, actually, I should probably shut up. We'll continue this conversation after this fight. This is a very important fight. So, actually, instead, save this explosive barrel for up here. I forgot to mention that. Wait for these two guys to get, like, next to these stairs and try to get them to, you know, swarm around each other. Take out those two of the explosive barrel. And then, if you can find, like, some arms or something or anything that's, like, sharp that could potentially impale this next guy, go for that. There's 3 slashers that spawn. A couple of supers and I think one regular one, but it doesn't matter. They're still slashers. So a couple of slashers spawn, and then from behind where you're supposed to go next is a pregnant. And just when the pregnant's, you know, coming toward your way, just shoot him in the legs, and then try not to make them spawn any swarmers. That's rule number 1 you should definitely try to go for here, is you do not want swarmers to spawn. And he's going to drop a gold semiconductor. I would recommend putting it somewhere safe. Take that semiconductor and put it like toward the door or whatever. That way it doesn't get blown away. Because I'm going to be putting these explosive barrels right here in the middle. That way I can get easy access to them. This part took me like a good 20 minutes to do. Yes, it's this annoying. And the reason why it took me 20 minutes is because there's so many damn enemies that spawn at so many different areas. And I'm going to show you what I did to take care of, well, most of the mass that ends up spawning. Back here, some plasma cutter ammo if you need it. There's still a med kit. I'd recommend like going around and looting up the place. But if you've died multiple times like I have, then you could always wait to loot until after you've accomplished everything you need to do. But my main goal in mind is I'm going to be staying down on the base level. I'm not on the base floor. I'm going to stay down on, like, you know, the first floor here. That way I don't get screwed over by any accidental, you know, choke points. Now, granted, looking at it now, this bridge up here could be a good place to fight. I didn't take that advantage, though. I just kind of stayed on the floor so I can keep kind of like a wide variety of, you know, areas to shoot them from, especially with the explosive barrels. That's what I was kind of going for. So if you want to play it maybe potentially more safe and have a better choke point, up there is pretty good. It seems like, from what it looks like, it seems like it's pretty good. I didn't test it out, so I can't say for sure. But once you turn on the engines, you're going to want to run over here to the left. Let's just get in the guide form now. Run over here to the left, and then you don't have to stasis if you don't want to. But just, you know, wait for the slasher to spawn. And then immediately turn around, because there's going to be a super that's going to be on your ass, like, right now. Try not to, you know, get caught with your pants down like I did, where you're just trying to get, like, a stasis to spawn. But if you're quick, you know, with your fingers, and you kind of understand where the enemies are going to spawn at. Like, I know where the first one spawns, and the other ones seem to kind of spawn in, like, various different areas. If you're pretty damn quick on where enemies are going to spawn at, then you could grab, you know, these explosive barrels. Also, I grabbed the semiconductor. That's what I meant by, like, trying to push it away from you and keep it away. If these guys get overwhelming, use stasis if you have some. Use stasis if you have some. If you want a good kind of safe spot to play at, that area where that first slasher spawned was seemingly a pretty good area to kind of get a good view on enemies at. Realistically speaking, it's the Leaper that really causes the most problems. So if you can stasis that Leaper, or at least take out the Leaper as fast as possible too, that's going to come in handy. But something else to try to keep in mind is, of course, aim for the legs, but you definitely want to try to prioritize knocking down the slashers as fast as possible. I know I said the Leaper might be priority number 1, but he doesn't spawn until like a little later. So if you're quick at taking down the slashers, then it should make the Leaper just a little bit easier. But if not, if the Leaper does spawn, try to like stasis everybody else around you and go for that Leaper, because he's going to cause a lot of pain, trust me. And if you got the explosive barrels around there, you could either shoot at them or grab them like I did and just kind of throw them around. But keeping the explosive barrels near you on hand in the middle is a pretty good idea. That way you can have good and quick access to them. So anyway, what I was talking about earlier with Bionicle Heroes is I got the game to run, because, I'm capable of getting my PS2 to run. It just takes a bit. So I got it to run, and then I went to go record, and then I found out I didn't have enough space on the memory card, and I'm like, oh no, we're not doing this. I'm not going to do a one-run, one-recording session of Bionicle Heroes, because that's ridiculous. Now, I know Bionicle Heroes is not really like a game that's worthy of a guide, but I did Luigi's Mansion before, so it's fine. Also, on your third trek back into here, a Super Slasher is going to spawn from the direction you're supposed to go. Basically where we came from originally, so something to kind of keep in mind. It looks like his body part there was breakdancing for a second. Yeah, something to kind of keep in mind is just having the knowledge that, hey, like, this guy's going to be here, so, just shoot him down whenever you see him. I think at this point I'm also trying to save for... Okay, I'm not saving, I guess. I guess I bought a stasis pack. That's surprising. Okay, so now this is a point where I have like a ton of money, and I'm like, you know what? Screw power nodes. I need ammo. So I spend at least a good chunk of like 10,000 on ammo. That's another thing too to keep in mind though, is if you're really worried about money saving, I always try to save at least 10,000. I used to. I don't need more, but saving 10,000 credits can help, just in case you need that ammo or power node. But anyway, that's it for this episode, and I'll see you guys next time.